Since the M1 Max came out back in November, I've been trying as hard as I can to find an Intel MacBook that represents a compelling value. I legitimately hope that one day, at around $1,000, there are more options than either MacBook Pro or MacBook Air. And so that's why I've bought this. This 2018 15-inch MacBook Pro very well could be the only Intel MacBook that I've seen in over 3 months that even stands a chance of stacking up favorably when compared to the M1. So grab some snacks, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and let's see if it has a chance. This video is sponsored by DataCamp. Understanding and analyzing data is critical no matter what industry you're in. With DataCamp, you can learn data science today and apply it tomorrow. DataCamp offers digestible, bite-sized lessons with expert instructors on a wide variety of data science topics such as Python, R, SQL, data analysis, and more. Because DataCamp's lessons are short, digestible videos, they can easily integrate into your schedule. You don't have to set aside like a 3-hour window to do one of their courses. Plus, their mobile app means you can access courses from anywhere. DataCamp subscriptions start at just $25 a month for unlimited access to their entire course catalog. And there is no credit card required at sign-up. Advance your professional career and build new skills to stand out from your peers by checking out DataCamp using the link in the description below. If you've been subscribed for a while now, then you know that I love comparing new devices to used devices. It's a great way to maximize your value by either getting something that is more powerful for the same cost or costs less for the same amount of performance. This is an obvious thing that I think everyone should do when shopping for a new device because it's the best way to maximize your value. The problem is the new Macs have turned the tables around. They offer vast amounts of performance and aren't terribly expensive relative to that performance and the used prices of other Macs. That's the dilemma that led to this purchase. When the Apple Silicon MacBooks came out last year, I made a video where I dissected the pricing of higher-end, recent 2018 and 2019 15-inch MacBook Pros. This particular one is a 2018 base model, and the reason that these are significant is they're realistically the only MacBooks that stand a chance of comparing favorably to the Apple Silicon models. Anything before this 2018 would be quad-core and is not going to be anywhere near close to the performance of the M1, but the problem was these were still too expensive. They were like $1,400, $1,500, $1,600, and that just wasn't a good value. So my takeaway from that video was we'll have to wait and see if the prices on these computers will fall low enough to make them potentially justifiable. And that's why I bought this one. I came across this listing for a base model 2018 15-inch that was priced right at $1,000. And I want to convey to you how crazy it is to see prices like that on a MacBook like this that's not even 3 years old. Traditionally, it takes 4 or more years for the high-end 15-inch models to drop below $1,000, so this was pretty significant. This was basically the cheapest non-shady listing I've seen on one of these. It was listed by a large seller that was selling multiple 2018s. They had a lot of positive reviews and even touted a rather pointless 30-day warranty. The only somewhat sketchy thing here was their description saying it was factory refurbished, when a closer read reveals that the refurbishing process includes functionality testing, basic cleaning, inspection, and repackaging, which is all done within a factory environment. Yeah, sorry, no, I'm not buying that. That's not factory refurbished. Factory refurbished means the manufacturer restores the computer to like new condition, not wipes it down with a microfiber cloth and puts it in a box. Anyway, besides this little embellishment, I figured I'd go for it. At this price, we might just get a competitive MacBook Pro. Plus, another thing I was secretly hoping for was that since this was a bulk listing, the computer I got might accidentally be better than what was sold. And sure enough, as is frequently the case with listings like this, the computer that showed up actually has the upgraded 512GB SSD rather than the 256 that was advertised. It also shipped with an OEM charger, which was a nice bonus, and the condition on this machine is surprisingly good. Granted, the bottom case has a decent number of scratches, but the rest of it is really great, and there's only 30 cycles on the battery. So, was this a good deal? Well, relative to other 2018s, absolutely. This is one of the lowest prices I've seen, and it wasn't, shady or risky in any way. But that's not good enough. The hope here was that at $1,000, we would maybe find something that was a viable alternative to an Apple Silicon Mac. So let's put it through its paces. First off, we'll run Geekbench 5 Multicore, where we can see that the 2018 gets pretty handily beaten by both M1 machines. But the ace up our sleeve here should be the much higher cooling capacity with a larger heatsink and 2 cooling fans compared to the fanless MacBook Air and single fan MacBook Pro. So I fired up Cinebench R23 expecting a pretty interesting result. And it was. It was interestingly bad. Not only did the 15-inch MacBook Pro get beaten by the M1 MacBook Pro, it also got narrowly beaten by the fanless 10-watt MacBook Air. That one really stings. This was a $2,600 laptop just over 30 months ago. With this rather unseemly defeat, I thought it best to flex the benefits of native x86 with a Blender run. Here, the M1 Macs are hampered by a translation layer, so the Intel book should do pretty well, but it didn't. The MacBook Pro with the M1 chip still beats the Core i7-8750H in this test, both in the BMW render and the much longer classroom render test. Sustained load is clearly not helping the Intel machine here at all. We're talking about a 45-watt Core i7 being beaten by a glorified iPad that's not even running Blender natively. There's a translation layer there. This doesn't make any sense. Alright, well there's still one area where the 15-inch MacBook Pro should still shine, and that's anything involving the graphics. We have a 35-watt dedicated GPU with 4 gigs of VRAM on hand. Surely we can do better in something like a Final Cut render, which loves to pull extra power from the GPU. I imported a 23-minute 4K 60 8-bit clip from my Sony a7S III and had Final Cut render a color correction layer on all 3 machines. And, well, darn. The M1 Pro, seemingly toying with the Intel Mac at this point, beat it by over 3 minutes, and the Air was nearly tied. In a last-ditch effort to save some face, I fired up Rise of the Tomb Raider and ran the benchmark on medium settings at 1200p and, well, yeah, that figures at this point. The M1 still won. Integrated graphics, plus a translation layer slowing it down, it still beats a 35-watt Radeon Pro 555X by a noticeable margin. This was genuinely not what I had been hoping at the outset of this video. I don't want to sound like a broken record and just keep bashing on Intel. I legitimately thought that at this price, we could at least get close. Maybe we would win some x86-oriented tests and lose some, and then we could have an interesting debate about pros and cons, but I mean, it's just crazy. The MacBook Pro beat this in every single test, and the MacBook Air was not far behind. So, key takeaways from these tests. Number 1, the MacBook Air is phenomenal. It's literally the bottom of the barrel, the cheapest MacBook that you can buy new, and it is going toe-to-toe with a not that old $2,500 workhorse. And the second takeaway is, this is harder than I thought. I mean, you guys have to realize that you literally cannot buy a more powerful MacBook than this for less money. But to be fair, one thing that I've always said on this channel is that performance isn't everything. We have to examine the entire package. And unfortunately for the Intel computer, that means the M1s are gonna score a few more points here. First of all, the obvious point is the keyboard. No competition, the M1s are better. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. Then there's the battery life. Once again, not even close. And again with thermals, this is what the Intel MacBook Pro sounds like halfway through a Cinebench run. And this is what the M1 that beat it sounds like at the exact same point. Not even close. However, I do think it's worth noting a few things. While the M1 MacBook Pro handily won our competition, it is noticeably more expensive than the 15-inch at $1,300, or $1,500 if you want to get that 500GB SSD like the Intel has. That's not an insignificant difference in price. When compared directly to the MacBook Air, which is evenly priced, the Intel MacBook Pro did actually win many of these tests, and for the same money. Plus, you could still argue that the extra storage, however luck-based it may have been, is a plus here. Even though you could make the case that this computer did beat the MacBook Air in some performance tests at the same price of $1,000, I don't really think that this offers a compelling value, because in terms of battery life and thermals and the keyboard, it's just not going to be able to compete. Really, the only case that I could make for this MacBook Pro is to those for whom Apple Silicon isn't really an option yet. If your workflow is x86, and that's not going to change anytime soon, you could at the very least rest easy knowing that this computer offers at least similar performance to the MacBook Air, even if it delivers it a little bit more warmly and noisily. And we also have to consider that the whole premise for this video assumes that Apple Silicon is an option, which means that you're going to be spending $1,000 or more. If you're on a $500 budget, Apple Silicon isn't even on the table. That's not relevant to you yet, because the prices are going to have to come down over the next couple of years for that to be a viable option. So budget Macs, I think, are pretty much staying where they were. They're not going to go anywhere. The problem is, with these higher end, more expensive used Macs, I just can't justify it. Unless you absolutely cannot use Apple Silicon for whatever reason, or maybe you absolutely can't live without Boot Camp. It's very likely that this Apple Silicon boom is going to push a lot of people to upgrade and end up with a lot of discarded Intel computers that end up needlessly going to waste. Hopefully that won't happen. Hopefully the response is that prices will continue going down and they'll be a good value again. That would be great. And if you want to see that happen, make sure to like and subscribe. Not that those two are related, but you should still do it. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Is this 2018 a good value or not? As usual, don't forget to follow me on Twitter, like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you all in the next video.